In order, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have roll call, please, Maureen.
Mr. Krings?
Here.
Mrs. Medina?
Here.
Mrs. Rail?
Here.
Mr. Beer?
Here.
Mr. Davis?
Here.
Mrs. Hett?
Here.
Mr. Bembo?
Here.
Hey, Maureen, first item on our agenda tonight is a special presentation by the Lincoln High School Cool to Be Kind group. So I believe that group is led by Mary Schultz and Melanie Kozlowski.
Yep. Is it on? Yes. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for having us tonight. We are here again to talk about our Cool to Be Kind group. And before we start, I'm just going to introduce some of our presenters tonight. This is Mrs. Kozlowski. She's a co-advisor with me. Natalie Kang is in charge of our new student group, one of our people in charge. We actually have 14 officers, so this is part of our group. Faith Jepson is one of our co-presidents. Taylor Mansell, another co-president. Hope Jepson, another co-president. Then we have Bria Moore, who is in charge of our Random Acts of Kindness. Colin Kozlowski is one of our vice presidents. So we're going to tell you. Oh, and Mrs. Hartley in the back, sorry. Sorry. And has joined us the last year or so to also help advise our group. So we're going to have a lot of pictures for you to look at today. And I apologize that we have our backs to you guys. So I'm going to sneak through so you can just look at this is a mural we painted this summer with one of the students there is the one who drew it, and then everybody helped paint it. So the beginning, how this all started. A number of years ago, a student who was a Lincoln High School student had been experiencing a fair amount of bullying himself and had gone to a workshop, a conference, and got excited about a program that he heard called Name It, Claim It, Stop It. And so he came back to Lincoln High School, talked to the administration, and said, we need to start this in our building. So the administration said, fine. So at the time, Cindy Borski, who was the German teacher in our building at the time, said she would advise the group. So for the first year, she advised the group, and they did some presentations in the 4th grade. So then I wound up at Lincoln High School part-time, and so Cindy kind of passed it on to me, said I think I really should be in student services, so it kind of came my way, and I worked with those students, about 9 students at the time that we started with, and they were a great group great group to work with, but they said we need to do more. This isn't enough. We're not going to address the issue of bullying just by going to 4th grade. So from that point on, and the next year actually, a bullying committee in the district was established that included the Lincoln High School, Rams, East, and an elementary, which I wound up being both, representative. And we came up with the fact that we really needed presentations in 4th, 5th, 6th, 8th, and 10th. So that's the role that we got as Name It, Claim It, Stop It to create those presentations. So with the help of students, the students put these together. And so we did our presentations, but the kids said we can still do more. There's so much more we can do than just going in once a year. And so they wanted to create a more positive environment, not only at Lincoln High School, but also in our entire district. Colleen Dickman was the superintendent at that time, and also was concerned about the number of new students coming into our district, especially at the high school level, who knew no one. And so she said, isn't there something you guys could do to help these new students coming in? So the kids said, sure, we'll take this on. So from that point on, I don't want to let the new student group tell you what they do, but we now have a whole committee that's their job, is dealing with our new students at Lincoln High School. This year we have entered about 98 new students, not including our foreign exchange students. So, and typically that's pretty average, we get those new students. We also, in the last about 3 years ago, we also added a program called Rise to Remember, which we'll also talk about as time goes on. So, that's our Kindness Matters poster. And so now Melanie's going to tell you a little bit about what our mission is.
So last year, beginning of the year, we met as a group and decided that because we were more than just the strategy of Name It, Claim It, Stop It, that we were really trying to impact our school environment and make it a more safe and welcoming place. The kids decided they wanted to explore changing the name. So they came up with ideas and they voted, and after some research, there is a national chapter called Cool to Be Kind. And so they voted and decided that was what they were going to do. So as part of that national chapter, we've adopted their mission and also added to it. So basically our work in all of our group is to change the culture of the school and community to become a place where people do not tolerate bullying in any form. We want to open people's eyes to the problem of bullying and its effects. We want to empower everyone to take a stand against bullying, become upstanders. We want them to report and resolve incidences of bullying that we encounter. We want to make our school a friendlier and more accepting place for every student. We want to discuss issues of mental health and its effects on students and staff. We want to recognize the efforts of students and staff in our building, and we want to welcome those who are new to our building and help them feel at home. So you'll find out as the groups come up that really is a multifaceted and very unique group in that we do much more than just anti-bullying. We try to be very proactive in what we do. So I'm going to introduce Nali.
Okay, we're the new student group. We hold 9 lunch games a year, one for every school, one for every month of the school year. Not only that, during the first day of school, we give tours. Not only that, but during the lunch games, we socialize with new students and our club members. During new students on the first few days of school, we check in on them every now and then just to make sure they're welcome and fitting in well. And then every activity that we have includes new students and foreign exchange students. We also have another committee called Random Acts of Kindness, and we plan monthly activities that focus on some deed of Random Acts of Kindness Day is a day that we try to do a lot. We plan annual Start with Hello Week in conjunction with the National Sandy Hook Chapter Promise. We spread positive messages throughout the school, like sticky notes on lockers in the bathrooms and the classrooms. And we assist with service learning fundraisers like the Humane Society donation in memory of Allison Yetter, Gems for Gemini fundraiser, which was for a student at Lincoln last year who was battling a rare form of cancer, candy cane sale donation to LHS Community Candles, and an upcoming donation to a local boy battling neuroblastoma.
We also feel it's very important to recognize those in our school who make a huge impact in the students every day. We recognize Teachers and Teacher Appreciation Day. We also recognize non-teaching staff such as administrative assistants, librarians, aides, food service, custodians, coaches, counselors, and many more. We also this year made a special welcome pack for new staff at the beginning of the year. And currently we are brainstorming other ideas for activities in the community, like making cards for nursing home residents. Throughout the school year, we also hold different special events that our students can come to and be involved with. The first one that we do is Start with Hello Week, and this is just to get our students all interactive with one another and to teach them that it's okay to stand up for themselves and for others, and to start by saying hello to new people and making new friends. We also do United Way Day of Caring, which is when we go out and rate leaves, which you can see in the picture on the screen. We also do Suicide Prevention Week, Bullying Prevention Week, Mental Health Awareness Week, Random Acts of Kindness Week, and also Consent Is, which is Sexual Assault Week.
I'm Colin Kozlowski, I'm one of the vice presidents. So another thing we do every year is present to 4th grade, 8th grade, and 10th grade for anti-bullying presentations. They used to be just about bullying, but lately we've been gearing them more towards mental health. Last year I went to, it's called Dignity Revolution. It's a training that is basically for leadership skills in kindness. So I, along with Emily Pyburn, who's another vice president, kind of went through and revamped the presentations to gear them more towards mental health and the specific age groups. So in the picture you can see one of the activities for the 4th grade presentation that we did. We had the classes fill out little slips of paper with acts of kindness they had seen in their school, and then once they fill it up, they would send a picture to us, and then we would make a certificate for them, and then we're going to display them for their class, and then when they get to Lincoln, they can see their elementary school class back on the wall. Another activity we do is the toothpaste demonstration, where you can It's a lot easier to squeeze the toothpaste out and you can't put it back in, so it really represents how your words can't be taken back. And then when you put the blue dye in the water, it starts out just in a small droplet, but it quickly spreads and ruins the whole environment. And then we add drops of bleach to the water, and it still doesn't take it back. And then we also do the sophomore presentations each year, which are definitely geared more towards mental health than the other ones because it has been a rising issue in our school.
Every May, we have a Rise to Remember event. It helps support those who have lost someone to suicide or who know someone who has attempted suicide. It also raises awareness of the issues of mental health in our teens today. We also have booths throughout the event that people can go to and find more information about local resources that they can use. And it's also, this event helps show people that they're not alone, that there's other people struggling, and that there's ways that people can help them.
So the future of Cool to Be Kind is really up to the students. They come up with new ideas, and obviously sometimes it's driven by things that happen in the school or in our district. But some of the things that we just started today, thanks to Bria and two other students, including one of our foreign exchange students, we went over to Mead School and started a Yana Club, which means you are not alone. And so our students will be going over and working with a bunch of third graders who wanted to promote kindness in their building. And so in addition to our fourth grade presentations, we're hoping to get some of those going in the elementary schools. And so we had 3 kids super excited today, right, Bria? About, and I would have added pictures, but it was too late, but it was just awesome. We had 11 third graders and our 3 students from Lincoln High School. Other things come up based on whatever, again, the students are interested in doing. We do this all without any funds. We have to raise all of our own funds. I do write a grant every year from the DPI, and I'm still hoping that one comes through. I haven't heard from them yet. But otherwise, we raise our own money. So it's something that the kids do all on their own with the help of us 3 advisors. So questions that you guys have of us? Yes.
I know you put notes on every locker at Lincoln. How many lockers are there?
1,583.
You stayed at the school so many times.
1,583, yes.
And maybe
They
you'll
wrote
never
them
know
all
the
out.
impact that you're making, but believe me, you are making an impact. You know, the people that may need some help, may just need a pat on the back or a friend, might not ever tell you that, but believe me, you're making a difference in their life, so thank you.
Well, last week I just have to share a part. I don't know if you know, the students write letters in the English classes for the bobbleheads. And so when those letters are written, I send them to the person it's written to. And I actually got one last week from a student who was a new student last year. And just part of her letter, well, the whole thing was very touching, but part of it reflected back to when she came to Lincoln High School and knew no one. And she said, I remember the day that you put a note in my locker with a candy bar, and you checked on me afterwards, and you invited me to the luncheons, and that made such a difference in my day and in my year, because it would not have been the same without the group of Cool to Be Kind. So, I mean, it just goes to show we take a lot of it for granted because we do it because we want to, but you're right, it does make a difference for kids, so.
How many students are in this group?
We started out with 9. We have about 65 right now.
Okay, I thought so. Yeah, I'm so proud of you. You know, there's so much with kids that, you know, we hear all the bad things, and man, this group is, and the Rise to Remember, I've gone to those, and that's probably the most touching thing I've ever.
Please come this year.
Oh,
It's
I
May
will.
16th, and
I
our
will.
speaker is a young lady who's in a wheelchair, so I'm really excited
They're
about it.
just, it's just awesome, and all the presentations are outside where people can get things, the NAMI group, and the, you know, yeah, it's excellent. It just makes my heart warm. Thank you.
And that was a student brainstorm. They came up with it one day, and that's where we've been since there. So, yes.
A question for the students: has their behavior changed outside of school since you've taken on this role in the school?
Well, for me, as far as I've known, people around me, they have started to change about how, because of the groups I'm in and because of the things that I've taken upon. Because I'm in charge of new students, so I give tours every morning now and then, and I always check out on random new students every now, and they started to accept that maybe they should just say hi every now and then to people they don't know. So.
A good example is better than a bad example. We always hear about the bad examples.
That's what we hope for. Any other questions?
Thank you for coming
Well,
tonight.
thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
We can move in the student representative report. Jacqueline, what do you have this month?
So gymnastics, wrestling, boys swimming, and boys and girls basketball have started. And then there were hockey games on Tuesday and Thursday. We won for both games. So the first one on Tuesday was against Wapaka, and we won 4-1. And then on Thursday it was against Oshkosh, and we won 4-0. And then there is a holiday concert with the band, orchestra, and choir on December 15th at 4 o'clock. And then there's for the FACT group, which is a youth-led advocacy group for the prevention of tobacco and e-cigarette use. We are planning on doing like Christmas cards and putting like facts on there about tobacco or e-cigarette harms on them, and then putting like a little candy cane and putting them on lockers before winter break.
Awesome.
Remember how many lockers there are?
Oh yeah.
You staying after quite a few days. Thank you. Move on to the minutes.
Okay, I would make a motion that we approve the regular Board of Education meeting minutes of November 11th and the special Board of Education meeting open and closed of November 25th.
Second.
Okay, we have motion and second to approve the regular Board of Education meeting minutes of November 11th and the special Board of Education open and closed meeting minutes of November 25th. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Those minutes are approved. We move on to comments from citizens and delegations. Do we have anything tonight, Lenny?
None.
Okay, thank you. We can start our committee reports. Ed Services. Sandy?
Ed Services met on December 2nd, and from that meeting, we had no public present, no public comment. But we have 4 consent agenda items from that meeting, and they are as follows. 1, the committee recommends and I move to approve Board Policy 330, Curriculum Development for first reading. 2, the committee recommends and I move to approve Board Policy 331, Curriculum Mapping for first reading. The committee recommends and I move to approve Board Policy 334, Curriculum Evaluation for first reading. And 4th, the committee recommends and I move to approve Board Policy 442.1, Student Board Representatives for first reading. What this is doing is they don't have to start in July coming to the meetings. It'll be September, and that they can have 2 sessions in a row, or 2 years in a row serving on it. And the others are just for curriculum development. These are some of the changes that they have been doing, and they're just making the policy conform to what they have been doing.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve ES1 through ES4. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
And then we had an update on that hot topic in the Capitol on cursive writing. And we do teach cursive writing. Jennifer Wilhorn had some samples of some of the texts or the books they're using for the cursive writing. They go from K to 5th grade, and they have anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes of handwriting instruction each week, depending upon their grade level. It continues to the 5th grade. The teachers are provided a binder to give their instructions so that there is some continuity. And student materials are provided to each individual student so they can really perfect that beautiful handwriting. Then we had an update on student travel. We have about 28 Lincoln High School girls softball players that will be traveling to Nashville, Tennessee to get some practice in because our weather really doesn't allow for that. One of our close neighbors, their girls have been going for a week at a time to the south to get in practices. And then we have about 30 Wisconsin Rapids Orchestra students, and they're going to be attending the Dorian Orchestra Festival at Luther College in Decorah, Iowa. Then we had, this is Kathy Stebbins Hintz reviewed the results of the 2018-19 school and district report cards. Suffice it to say that Rapids, we met expectations, very, very close to exceeding expectations, just a smidgen close. All our schools did well. And then we had an update on our innovation education grants and sub-raffle when we had our big in-service when all the teachers came back.
some of our administrators were going to substitute for a teacher in the district, and there wouldn't be any monetary cost to the person that they were subbing for. They've gone about halfway through that. The teachers are really enjoying it, and I think the administrators are glad to get back in the classroom, maybe. And we had on innovative grants, there were 13 applications, and 3 were selected to receive those grants. We have digital marking simulator, safe space, and the one that's consortium between many teachers, and it's Wisconsin, our state, our story. And we asked that these women, after they have worked with their grant, that they could come back to the committee and tell us how the grant was used. And with that, I move that the minutes from the Educational Services Committee meeting of December 2nd be approved as printed.
Second.
We have motion and second to approve the meeting minutes of the Educational Services Committee meeting of December 2nd. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Those minutes are approved. Thank you, Sandy. We'll move on to business services. John.
Hey, John. Business services met Monday, December 2nd, and started our meeting at 6:30. We did not have any public comment. We have one consent agenda item on our meeting, and that is a district software purchase for Ed's department in the building and grounds. To basically, this software is called the Akita Box, and it provides tracking and asset management and building preventative maintenance schedules for the district. It's similar to what Ed explained to us in the previous meeting of where they were going through and updating all of the blueprints. What this does is it catalogs every piece of equipment we have in the district, and then it allows them to set up maintenance and also give alarms if there is something happening to the equipment. The equipment, or the software is a $10,000 per year fee. There's a one-time cost for data collection and mapping, and Ed explained to us that mapping is quite extensive, and they send up a guy here for about a week from Madison to do all the mapping in the buildings and go through and make sure everything is correct, because as they found out in some of the drawings and the construction we had at the Lincoln for the new additions, that some of the wires weren't where they were supposed to be, or the pipes weren't where they're supposed to be, and things had changed and were changed through the years from when it was built back in 1979. So the committee moves, and I recommend the proposal to approve the implementation of the Akita Box software services for cataloging and developing maintenance schedule for district equipment at a one-time fee of $25,000 be recommended for the approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the implementation of the Akita Box Incorporated software and services for cataloging and developing a maintenance schedule for district equipment at a one-time fee of $25,000. We have roll call, please, Marie.
Mrs. Hack?
Yes.
Mr. Krings?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Rayle?
Yes.
Mr. Beer?
Yes.
Mrs. Medina?
Yes.
Mr. Bembo?
Yes. One thing I did also note that the company did say they will waive the first year maintenance fee. So that was a nice gesture for the purchase of the software. The balance of our report, we had updates on band uniforms, and what they did is they purchased, kind of filled out the sizes and had more uniforms so that all students have a proper size uniform when they're performing on the field. We had a dishwasher update at Woodside. One of them went out, and so they had to have an update there. We had an update on the Honeywell building systems, and as Ed explained to us, that's a setup fee of $8,900, and we approved that at a previous meeting. But it makes our system a little more, far more efficient, and we don't get, Ed was saying at one time we would get almost 10,000 alarm codes a week.
That was in about 3 days.
Yeah, for 3 days. Not all of them are serious, but this software, new software, will clean a lot of that up. We also discussed our free and reduced meal eligibility count by building. Basically, there wasn't much change, which was a good sign that we didn't have much change, about a 1% increase, with the student count basically the same. And then the last part is the auditor's report, which Dan is not here to give that to us, but Craig is going to do the.
It's gonna be, it's gonna be scintillating, yeah, it's gonna be good.
So we will have that in, you're going to do that now, or we're going to do that
It's
afterwards?
under new business.
New business, okay, so we will continue that in new business. So with that, I submit, the committee recommends, and I move the submission of the rest of our meeting minutes.
Second.
A motion is second to approve the meeting minutes of the Business Service Committee of December 2nd. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries as minutes are approved. Thank you, John. We'll move on to personnel. For Sandy, looks like you got double duty.
Personnel Services met last Monday, December 2nd. There was no public comment from that meeting, but from that meeting, we have 10 consent agenda items, and they are as follows. 1, the committee recommends and I move to approve the 3 support staff appointments. 2, the committee recommends and I move to approve the 1 support staff resignation. And then we have 5 policies which are for second reading. 3, the committee recommends and I move to approve Board Policy 453.4, administering medications to students for second reading. 4, the committee recommends and I move to approve Board Policy 453.4, rule medication administration procedures for second reading. 5, the committee recommends and I move to approve Board Policy 537, professional staff growth and development for second reading. 6, the committee recommends and I move to approve Board Policy 537.1, attendance at workshops and conferences for second reading. 7, the committee recommends and I move to approve Board Policy 537.2, new colleague orientation for second reading. 8, the committee recommends and I move to approve a $1 above base increase for the Lincoln High School registrar position effective December 13th, 2019. And this is to make it in alignment with all other district year-round clerical positions because this position has now become year-round. 9, the committee recommends and I move to approve the option for hourly staff support staff to make up lost hours due to emergency school closures as presented by administration and proposed language changes to the food service and office clerical and aid support handbooks as presented in attachments. And finally, 10, the committee recommends and I move to approve an increase to the elementary keyboarding position by a 0.18 FTE when second grade keyboarding begins in the spring of 2020, which would be effective in March. Does anybody want anything held out? I'd like 9 held out.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second to approve PS 1 through 8 and PS 10. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
My concern on motion 9, where we're having the option for hourly support staff to make up lost hours, I just think last year with 8 absences, it was just an anomaly, and I would have preferred to see us monitor this year to see if we would have the same thing, or if we've always been in line and what the past has been like 3 days and 4 days. That was my objection to that. So.
Does anybody want any more clarification on what was behind that?
There wouldn't be opportunity for makeup until the 4th day. So the first 3 days would be status quo, and the 4th day would have that option. And we would devote like a spring professional development day and service day that folks that were hourly would have some options at utilizing that time. It would be voluntary, not mandatory, so participation would probably not be 100%. I mean, that's almost a guarantee. And like I said, it was the 4th day, sorry.
So is this because there's people who have work to get done that they can't get done, that they're not there, or just considering the loss of wages and they just, I mean, how are they making it up? What are they doing? Is
This-
something?
It would be PD, professional development tailored to their specific needs. One of the things that comes to mind right off the top end would be like trauma-informed approach with kids that you can use for bus drivers, cooks, aides, that doesn't matter. Some things around diversity and equity and so forth. So we would have some tailor-made options for them to have access to. Sometimes it could be an online option. And frankly, we can't really report to you what that's going to look like until we lock and load something, we get ready to rock and roll and give it a shot. I agree with Sandy. I don't know that this is going to be something we use with regular frequency, but what ended up happening last year when we had 4 days canceled in one school week, which I don't know that's happened in the history of the state of Wisconsin, much less in the district. But there were some hourly support staff members very clearly that were paid a fraction of what they normally would have because we had emergency school closures on 4 consecutive days. And so within one payroll, if it was, you know, a typical 10-day, 2-week payroll, they only had a maximum of like 6 days because we had closed school for 4. And then of course there was other closures to give us a grand total last year of 8. That's an outlier. You know, it's possible, but it's probably not likely that we're going to see 8 closures again, much to the dismay of some of our seniors. But we probably won't. But with that said, you know, if we get to that weird level again, the thought process is that it provides some opportunity for a little bit of makeup. If timing is poor, so for example, we close school in April or early May, God forbid, which we've done because of snow, or that there's really no opportunity to get something put together because we might be past, you know, in-service day opportunities or even outside of school time. So it is kind of a play it by ear and wait and see. And we can report back if we ever do that with regard to what the suite of options look like, the participation, you know what I mean? So it's a little bit of a stab in the dark, but we're hedging our bets that it's probably unlikely, but if we have to do it, we have a plan in place, and it'll have to, you know, certain criteria and conditions will be met. That's a long-winded way of saying, is it based on somebody just making up time? In a general sense, yes, but it would be relevant to, you know, skills or attributes we want them to accomplish anyway. And it is not for people that are regular employees that come in and get work done during inclement weather days, because we have a good portion of staff that do that as well. So this would be for folks that primarily are food service is one example. Individuals assigned to specific kids. So like if there's not kids in the building, you really don't have a job to do that day. Those are 2 of the categories that come to mind off the top of my head. So it's not for everybody.
If I could just add, in some ways this would be really helpful for us because we often don't get the opportunity or have the resources to work in staff development with some of our support staff. And for example, last year, because we got the school safety grant, we had to train every single support staff person in at least 3 hours of trauma training. And that, luckily we had the grant, but that I think ended up costing like $8,000, which isn't necessarily something we put into our normal budget. So this would really be a nice opportunity for us to really reach those staff members with some of this information that they truly need. Seclusion and restraint. Danny has to always train her special ed staff in that area. So this is just another way we can perhaps help them work better with our students.
If the concern is that, as you pointed out, that they have one pay period where they missed 4 days, when are they getting the pay then? Is it like they're getting it whenever? I mean, when would this makeup stuff be done?
When they would do it. Because since they're hourly, it would be based on what's on their time card.
And would it be done like during regular, or like, when are you gonna do this? I mean, if they're school, they're busy, right?
It's on the PD days.
Yep.
So we'd actually, like our instructional coaches or some administration would actually set aside some time on those days to work with these folks and design it for them to meet their needs in their job, as well as meet the needs we have for their job performance.
Mm-hmm. So that's not gonna offset the issue that maybe they have a paycheck that's a lot lower than they maybe had expected?
Nope.
It'll come later.
Yeah, but it's an opportunity to make at least some of that back. Yeah.
Sandy has a good point, but I still think it's good to use if we need it. So I would move to approve the option of hourly support staff to make up for lost hours due to emergency school closures as presented by the administration, and proposed language changes to the food service office clerical and aid support handbooks as presented in attachments.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve PS 9. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
I'll move that. I move that the minutes from the December 2nd Personnel Services Committee be approved as printed.
Second.
Okay, we have motion and a second to approve the meeting minutes of the Personnel Services Committee of December 2nd. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Those minutes are approved. Thank you, Sandy. We'll move on to agenda referrals and information requests. Does anybody have anything?
Only that we put on the board meeting next month for the delegate assembly
Okay.
discussion and approval. For me to vote.
Vote your conscience?
The other thing is, I know we've been discussing a little bit bus cameras. And this month, again, we have a charge for November. I would like to know what our charge is for 1 year, accumulatively.
Bus camera charges?
Yeah, because for November was like $408 for 1 month.
It probably makes sense just to give a brief update on the fact, because we had some board communication around the camera topic, and just for the purpose of any interested community members potentially. But what we're talking about is soliciting bids or doing an RFP around outfitting our buses, all of our buses, with cameras. Sandy and other board members had some questions around what our current camera circumstance looks like and who pays for them and who owns them and that sort of thing. And so for clarification's sake, if anybody's paying attention from 1 month to the next, there was follow-up on that. We have 7 cameras, 4 are on Safeway buses, 3 are on Lamers buses. They are purchased and maintained 100% by the bus companies, and therefore they are owned by the bus companies. We are charged a $4 per day per route charge for having a bus with a camera on it. So that's where they recoup their cost in terms of the camera and maintenance and so forth and so on. We're talking about possibilities and what a camera bid looks like. And we'll have competitive bids from a number of companies, I would imagine. There's more than one option out there, and a variety of configurations and so forth. They range anywhere from super cheap, to which you probably don't want to get, because then the video quality is terrible and it's really defeating the purpose, of $300, $400, $500 a bus, all the way up to $2,000 plus per bus. And so you can have a wide range of options and things to choose from if we in fact move in that direction. And then I think it's worth mentioning for clarity's sake as well that we have not decided who would be purchasing the cameras, whether the board's going to purchase the camera or the district is, and then the cameras, pardon me, and then we figure out collaboratively how we install them, but then there would not be a per route charge, that we would just own the cameras, and if there's problems, we would take care of them. Or if the bus companies are agreeable to making that purchase on our behalf and then charging us a per route fee, whatever the case may be. So that's not decided or discussed. And we have not yet seen any bids on the bus cameras as of yet. Dan has that in process. That's going through the business department. And so when we do have some, I'm guessing by next month or the month after at the very latest, we'll have some numbers for you that will inform our conversation as we move forward. And I'll get you the number on what we're paying per year, because I didn't ask for that number.
Is there anything else? All right, we can move on to the legislative agenda. What do you have this month, Troy?
So this month, neither chamber of the legislature, assembly, or senate is scheduled to be in floor session. So it's a little bit lighter of a month in terms of looking at some bills. But Governor Tony Evers signed 4 education-related bills into law on November 21st. And the first of 4 is Assembly Bill 51, which was signed into law as Wisconsin Act 35. This bill modifies the eligibility criteria for the Minority Teacher Loan Program to allow a loan recipient to be eligible if they are employed by a public school, private school, or tribal school that is located in a district where at least 40% of the students are minority students. The second of the 4 bills is Assembly Bill 54, signed into law as Wisconsin Act 39. This allows a public or private school to provide warning to students before a fire, tornado, or school safety incident drill. WASB has come out in support of this Assembly Bill, AB 54. The third bill signed into law is Assembly Bill 194, signed into law as 2019 Wisconsin Act 44. This creates an alternative pathway to initial licensing as a special education teacher for individuals who meet all of their licensing requirements and successfully complete a course of study that provides rigorous instruction in phonics, vocabulary, reading comprehension, and fluency. And WASB has come out in support of Assembly Bill 194 as well. The fourth bill Governor Evers signed on November 24th is Assembly Bill 195. This was signed into law as 2019 Wisconsin Act 43. This converts teaching licenses based on reciprocity into Tier 2 licenses and allows such licenses to become Tier 3 lifetime licenses after the completion of 6 semesters of teaching experience. This bill allows a teacher to receive a license based on reciprocity if they have successfully taught for 2 semesters under a DPI-issued license or permit at a public, private, or charter school. WASB has come out in support of AB 195 as well. Also, in the legislature, Senator Jeff Smith of Eau Claire, he is circulating a draft bill for legislative support, as well as Rep. Sandy Pope, his counterpart in the Assembly, for legislative support authorizing school districts to rehire retired teachers without those teachers having to give up their pensions. This bill matches a provision included in Governor Evers' 2019-21 budget proposal that was removed by the legislature before the budget was signed into law. This draft bill comes on the heels of a similar proposal by Representative Mary Bilkowski, which is not limited to retired teachers, but all Wisconsin Retirement System retirees. However, that proposal caps a retiree's return to 3 years and also includes an increase in the minimum retirement age for all WRS participants who fall into the general employee classification. And while WASB seeks a comprehensive approach to improving the supply of teachers, the membership has adopted a resolution in support of allowing persons receiving a WRS pension payment who return to WRS covered employment the option to continue to receive their pension. WASB is in support of the Smith-Pope bill as a move in the right direction and another potential tool for school boards to use in addressing teacher supply issues. So those are the bills circulating in the legislature and what Governor Evers signed. And with that, both houses of the legislature are not scheduled to be in session in December. So that takes us to the new year.
All right, thank you for your report, Troy. Move on to the bills.
Okay, I would make a motion that the receipts be noted and the bills be paid as printed.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second that the receipts be noted and bills paid as printed. We have roll call, please, Maureen.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Hutt?
Yes.
Mr. Bembo?
Yes.
Mrs. Rayon?
Yes.
Mr. Beer?
Yes.
Mr. Krings?
Yes.
Mrs. Medina?
Yes.
Okay, we'll move on to new business. Item A, possible action on employee appointments, resignation, and retirement requests.
You have a short list in front of you. We have an 8 addition at Washington, and then you just remember you just approved Sandra Southworth's addition, or she was going to be a club meet aide in the time between last Monday and this Monday. She was a noon duty aide there. She now is resigning from both, so you approved her position, and she's resigning in the same week span. So an oddity there for you.
I would move that the Bates and Southworth changes be made as listed.
Second.
Should we take them individually, Maureen,
We could.
the appointment?
I would move the Cindy Bates appointment be made.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second, to approve the appointment of Cindy Bates to special ed aide at Washington Elementary. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And I would move that Sandra Southworth resignation be also taken care of.
We have a motion, a second, to approve the resignation request of Sandra Southworth. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Item B, discussion and possible action on a request from Rapids Area Soccer to construct a shelter south of the existing concession stand at the Washington Elementary soccer fields. Good evening.
Ahmad is here to speak to the topic.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Ahmad Musallam. I am the president of Rapids Area Soccer, which involves all the soccer groups in the area. And I've been involved in soccer here for about almost 40 years. So it depends. I got here 3 sheets for each of you. Makes it easier to discuss it. You could take one and pass it over.
Yep, they should have copies of what you gave to Ed.
Yeah, but I'll talk about those. Yeah, appreciate that. At the same time, I want to thank Ed Allison for putting us on the agenda. You could see that from the first sheet, we are requesting to construct a shelter. On the first sheet, if you see that shelter is going to be constructed in the front of our concession building. The second sheet is going to be on that concrete base. And to just go the last sheet to give you a little history. This is the trailer, tractor trailer. This was our shelter and concession building. This picture was about 1986. And we improved, we had a sign there. The high school, they had the storage underneath the trailer. That's where we put equipment for the high school team. And I ran rec soccer from that trailer. So I think many of you were involved with that soccer program, so you know about it. That shelter here, pavilion, it's part of a capital project that it's in our books that we always have a list of projects we need to do. Part of it is to install or replace our our goals, soccer goals. And the soccer goals, we purchased a new 22 goals and we installed them last June. Those were completed. All that money is donation money. There is no single penny comes from our taxpayers from the school district. And the partnership has been like this over the years with the school district. We have an excellent relationship. That shelter, actually, give you a little history, that concession building that we have installed in 2002, 2003, it has another bay at the end of it. I cut it down. The reason is we need to cut costs. We don't install anything in Rapids Area Soccer without having the complete funding. We don't even start the project unless we have it. So we don't get any loans. And at that time I promised them some of these days we'll build some kind of shelter, from the elements, for training, for many things that you could do there. So that's really the shelter, and we're gonna try to build it, if you ask me the timing, hopefully during the summer of 2020. We need to do it when the kids are not there, the school is out, between the rec season. The rec season is spring and the fall, so we want to make sure the younger kids are not there. All the money we're going to get is of donations. At the same time, we're going to be also selling commemorative tiles that we're going to install on the columns. All those columns are designed to add tiles. People could purchase tiles, 8x4 or 8x8 or 12x12. And that's the plan. We'll have the whole community to participate in fundraising for that shelter. Let's see. Any questions? I could talk a lot about soccer, but
I don't think the community understands the economic impact of those soccer fields. When you've got tournaments over there, the motels are full, the restaurants are full. I mean, there's people everywhere. There's thousands of people around that soccer field. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, it is, it's really for our kids. I mean, and anything we do there is donation to the community. I remember in 1995 going to the city council, getting money for the lights. That's another story. For the lighting. And the reason we put the lights at that time, we did fundraising for the new football field. I remember giving $15,000 at that time from our soccer group. But our coach Beagle said, no, the soccer players can't play there because they're going to damage the football field more than offensive linemen, So that's why I said, okay, we're going to put lights on the soccer field. And, I went to the city council and I asked for the money, and they said, at that time, I think there was some conflict with the school district, and, I said, if a 5-year-old kid is standing on the soccer field, he's not going to say, hey, I'm in the Wisconsin Rapids School District field here, I can't really kick the soccer ball. It's your kids. Anyway, I got the money from them at that time. But that's really how we work, and this is how we do it. We go do fundraising on with the projects, and we appreciate the good relationship we have with you. The money, it's almost there. I mean, so there should be no problem in getting the donations to get the job done. Any questions?
Do we have any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I want to make a comment and thank Ahmad for all the work he's done for kids in this district, in our city, and in the soccer programs, because he's been doing it forever. I mean, I've been involved with soccer a long time, and I know back in, I think you and Barry Gutzmacher and them started soccer at Lincoln my senior year in 1979. I think 78 was the first soccer program.
That's right.
It's come a long way, and they do a lot of good things, and this can only add. I mean, our schools Washington School uses that, I know I've seen kids under that pavilion under the current.
Yeah, if you look at the
Under this current thing, I've seen kids under there in classrooms and teachers have taken their kids out there.
Yeah.
So this will be another extension for them to use that as a classroom. Even, it's on school district grounds, but, you know, anytime you have a cover, and if you've ever been to a soccer tournament when it's raining,
actually,
more cover on a field would be great. So.
That's exactly right. Same thing, this is could be utilized, but like anything else, it has to be scheduled through Rapids Area Soccer.
Right.
You know, we can't just, people just come in on the fields and people play in different fields and we have conflicts. So we have to schedule it, but it's open to the whole public.
That's great.
By the way, that area here in the front of the concession building, it looks like there is a grass being built. This what it used to be our old concession building. Now it's storage north of the varsity field. And initially, we were planning to use it. I looked at it and I said, we can't have a new shelter without having a new base. So it's added about $15,000 to do that, but we're gonna do it and we get the money to do it. So it's gonna.
Well, I would gladly make a motion to approve the request from Rapids Area Soccer for them to fully fund and construct a shelter south of the existing concession building located at Washington Elementary Soccer Field.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the administration's recommendation of a request from Rapids Area Soccer, Inc. for them to fully fund and construct a shelter south of the existing concession building located at the Washington Elementary Soccer Field. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When I'm out, I'll buy a tile. It'll match the one we got on the other building.
By the way, I already have the place to get it. People will be able to buy it online. I tested it. You will be able, it's 4x8 for $200, 8x8 for $400, and 12x12 for $600. And it's set. You know, I think we'll be sending emails to all the fans, supporters, and so we can get that.
They have those in the new Marshfield football complex that built up there all around. There's those type of tiles on the buildings, around the walls and on the columns and on the concession entrance things. So yeah, it's a good fundraising tool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, review and approval of required annual school violence drills conducted by each building.
Okay, so under Act 43, on or before January of each year, you have to be presented with our school violence drill documentation, which you have before you there in a nice red colored cover sheet. And we have begun a process of switching over kind of to a Google Doc or form, thank you, to get this information from our constituent buildings and then compile it in some kind of a more organized fashion, or just we're kind of modifying our approach to be a little bit more specific, shall we say. And that's in process. Maureen's been working with Nick Sidorowitz, who has some skills with regard to Google Forms and something called pivot tabs or something like that. Pivot tables, I'd be lying if I told you I knew what they were talking about, but basically it works where a principal can input their information, and then of course it'll be stored like in a Google form, you know, that you can print out as a spreadsheet, and allows us to do some things with that data, but it also allows that principal to go back in and go, oh yeah, that's right, I did an Alice drill on this date. And so that's in process. Why do I tell you that? There's really no reason other than saying that we're looking at a better way to document our school violence drills and some kind of a protocol around what that looks like here in the district. This, I think, is the second year of this requirement. And because of the nature of these drills, we don't go into great detail. That's why it's labeled confidential. And that's why you're not going to hear a lot of conversation on the topic, because quite clearly, if we talk about what we do in the event of these circumstances, it kind of defeats the purpose of what we do. It's nothing magical or spectacular. There are things that you've already heard about with regard to Alice and other preparation and planning that we're doing. But there you go. It's a requirement on an annual basis, and tonight's tonight.
I would move then to approve the review of the required annual school violence drills conducted by each building in the district.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the written school violence event drill evaluations submitted by each building principal under Wisconsin statutes 118.07, parents 4, and CP. Isn't that what you've motioned?
That exactly.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We can move on to the next item, consideration and possible approval of recommended updates to Board Policy 731.2, use of electronic surveillance technology in public areas of school buildings and property for first reading.
Yeah, so it's standard protocol in 731.2 that you have in your packet there. You'll notice the italics, bolded and underlined sections are those that we are talking about including. And then, of course, the areas that we're taking out are stricken. Basically, what it relates to is it outlines a little bit of the determination around video surveillance recordings and them as student records or personnel records versus law enforcement records. In addition, it does outline a little bit with regard to our relationship with SROs, or school resource officers, and law enforcement with regard to their access to video surveillance in time of crisis. And one of the things that we're going to talk about next, to kind of give you the full story, is an MOU that we worked on developing with our local law enforcement agencies, allowing them or outlining the expectations around that kind of sharing arrangement or collaboration around video surveillance, because what you probably realize is that surveillance data for a school district, as far as student records are concerned, are very explicit with regard to retention and access. Law enforcement record is different, and it falls under different parts of statute, and so we have to kind of lay out what that looks like. This is not necessarily new, but it does codify what this looks like in reality, because we've had SROs in our schools, they're law enforcement personnel. They've seen video, on our behalf. We haven't necessarily turned it over as a law enforcement record unless there's some criminal conduct or investigation. This will highlight that and make that much easier process, also legally protect us to some degree. And then the MOU is an expansion of that to a degree, because we now have all of our facilities with surveillance technology. And in the event of a crisis or a circumstance under which law enforcement response is required, Wood County Dispatch would have access to all of our video surveillance at the time, where they can provide real-time information to all law enforcement officers, both the Sheriff's Department and our local municipalities, to respond to a crisis or respond to a circumstance. And so I'm kind of doing 2 for 1, but the reason is that the policy and then the subsequent MOU are absolutely related.
I make a motion to recommend approval of the suggested revisions to Board Policy 731.2, use of electronic surveillance technology in public areas of school buildings and property for first reading.
Second.
We have motion and second to approve the administration's recommendation of the suggested revisions to Board Policy 731.2, use of electronic surveillance technology in public areas of school buildings and property for first reading. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, discussion and possible action to approve entering into a memorandum of understanding with law enforcement for emergency situation access to district security cameras.
I would move
I have a question. On page 2, when we look at our Wisconsin Rapids Public Schools and Wood County Dispatch, the individuals are named. But when you look on the next page, the police chief of Wisconsin Rapids and Grand Rapids aren't named. So if we didn't have the names, we wouldn't have to update this if there were to be a change. Would we want them to be kind of the same?
We could change it, that's a good suggestion.
Yep.
So this should be the attention of the sheriff, and take out Sean Becker, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, just take the names out and just leave the position.
Superintendent.
Correct. That's a great idea.
Then I would move, enter into a memorandum of understanding MOU with law enforcement for emergency situation access to district security cameras with those changes noted.
Second.
A motion is second to approve entering into a memorandum of understanding with law enforcement for emergency situation access to district security cameras with noted changes. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, the next is review and discussion of the 18-19 financial statements and independent auditor's report.
Okay, are you ready? Brace yourselves. It's going to be entertaining.
All right.
good thing is it was very, very good, so.
So that's probably the biggest overarching statement that I will make, and that is, it's not atypical to have at least a couple, if not 3 or so findings in your audit, because there are some things that happen as a matter of course. And that would be that there's a threshold by which you make modifications, that the auditor would make recommended modifications to how your numbers are reflected. And then say, oh, because we had to do it this many times, give or take, well, that's going to be a finding of our audit. That didn't happen. Also, division of duties, that didn't happen, so that's been rectified. Well, it hasn't been an issue, but that is a standard issue. And then finally, the one finding that the audit report indicates is what's outlined is the fact that we do not prepare our own audited financial statements. And that is probably true of 95 or 98% of school districts. I'm pretty confident that like Milwaukee and maybe one other district does their own, because it's very rare that school districts actually prepare their own audited financial statements. That's one of the reasons we pay the dollars we do, to be audited and have them follow up with the documentation. So what you see before you was prepared by the auditor, okay? And that is a finding of the audit because, again, it was prepared by them and not by us, although it's quite rare. So any questions on that? That's basically what's encapsulated in this independent report, that kind of brief stapled thing that you got. And just to make sure that I'm going through as much or as little as you would like, I'm going to review just a few things very briefly, and if you have questions, certainly ask, and if there's something I didn't discuss, please let me know. These are Dan's post-it notes, so I'll do the Dan thing and go, oh, I don't remember why I put that note there. But I'm actually going to go all the way to page 27, where we start getting into some of the specific numbers. And clearly, if you have questions on any or all of this, please feel free to ask. A couple of notes that he wanted to mention with regard to the investment, cash and investment. He indicates that that's inflated by $3,811,000 due to cash flow borrowing that was repaid in October 17th, 2019. And then the $5,837, $5,837,957 is for, that's balance left for energy efficiency borrowing that we've done. Okay, so that's why that dollar's there. And that, of course, is invested. It's not just sitting in a, under Dan's bed, for example. We have that taken care of. Then I'm going to move you along to page 30, where you see some information on bonds and outstanding debt. Dan's plan, as you will see in the budget adjustment as well, is to do some defeasance again of debt, 1.5 million, give or take, 1,520,000 in March of 2020. Is planning to defease those dollars, and that is outlined here on these bonds. And I would be lying if I told you I specifically know which one he's talking about, which one we're planning on doing that pay down on. It's not on the QZAB, that's a guarantee, because that's at 0% interest. And he did mention this to you, but I don't recall, so I don't want to say the wrong thing. Let's see here, other points of interest. Let me see here. On page 40, under transfer from and transfer to, you see the general and long-term capital improvement fund. That $1,818,000 is to Fund 46. You guys remember establishing a Fund 46 back when you had that opportunity? And I believe we have access to those dollars for capital projects effective this April, if I'm not mistaken, after that waiting period. Because I think that was 3 years ago that was started, Maureen, does that sound right?
That sounds about right.
Something like that. Moving on to page 44, you can see there what are listed as various fund balances. Restricted, food service, committed, general, and so forth, and those dollars specifically, other capital project specific expenses, that $5,583,971. I draw your attention back to that because that is the same number that I mentioned with regard to borrowing on the energy efficiency projects. So that's where that rolls over and is technically, fund balance, but of course it's spoken for with regard to those energy efficiency projects. And then the rest, I'm pretty confident, is the stuff that I've already discussed. Yeah, there's on page 62 where that significant deficiency where it's checked yes is highlighted, that is as a result of the auditors preparing the financial reports.
It always amazes me that's in there every year. It's like, you don't have somebody to do it for you, but we pay you to do it for us. But they note that we don't have somebody to do it for them. It just seems strange.
And that's under their accounting standards. They don't have a choice. Yeah. So overall, I think Dan was, I'm going to say pleasantly surprised. I don't believe you had to make, the modifications you had to make were few and far between as is outlined by the audit report, and it went very well.
Well, normally we have like
Yes.
3 pages. I mean, we have a half a page.
Yeah, so the adjustments were minimal.
What the adjustments were.
Yep.
And they're always complimentary to the staff that they've worked with, so.
For auditing the amount of dollars that come and go out of our organization, they are not here. You know, you would think it might be a 2-week sort of protocol. They're here for 3 days, and that's because of our people, give or take. So, yeah, they do an excellent job. And I didn't do that any justice, so if you have specific questions around anything in that document, or anybody does, you can certainly reach out to me for clarification, or you can reach out to Dan, and one or both of us can find an answer for you if there are questions.
So we do not need a approval of that?
Nope.
We can move on to the discussion on possible action to amend the 1920 district budgets.
Right, so thankfully you get to listen to me talk yet again. And what you have before you is a modification to our existing budget. To provide you kind of a backdrop for why we're sitting here tonight, it's quite simple, but also there's the narrative or the timeline of some of the modifications that were made from June when the initial budget was approved. If you recall, during a special board meeting when we talked about insurance, Dan and I provided you a brief update with regard to what the budget picture looked like, and basically said, yep, there's some minor modifications, but the overall levy is not going to change, and therefore no action was taken. But that was October 28th, thank you. And now, a couple of different things have transpired. A, as you well know, the audit is all taken care of. B, as we talked about at that October meeting as well, we now have solidified our state aid, our pupil count, and our property values, and all of those 3 items provide to us the most accurate numbers we can possibly get. In addition, the audit then describes some potential modifications with regard to how you're accounting for and in what areas you're accounting for certain dollars. So those modifications have been made. And then finally, the modifications that have been made to ask you to do this amendment, which is by and large the bulk, would be modifications to staff compensation because of going through all of our groups with regard to the wage increase, and then modifications with regard to our new insurance package, which does not start until January. However, we have access to those numbers, and as you well know, that's not, it's enough dollars and cents that it does have an impact. So in a general sense, that encapsulates all of the changes that you see on both the first page of the overall budget adjustment as well as the other accounts, Fund 50, Fund 80, the Capital Projects Fund, and so forth and so on. And if you have specific questions about certain items, I'll do my best to answer them for you, but in speaking with Dan, budget code changes via DPI, and then staff compensation and benefits are what gave rise to this modified budget.
And the fact that he's going to defease more debt.
Correct.
I would move then we approve the amendments to the 2019-20 district budget as described.
Second.
A motion is second to approve the administration's recommendation to amend the 2019-20 district budget as presented. Can you have a roll call, please, Maureen?
Mr. Krings?
Yes.
Mrs. Round?
Yes.
Mr. Beer?
Yes.
Mrs. Hatt?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Medina? Yes. Mr. Bengel?
Yes.
Thank you, Maureen. So that's all we have under new business. Looking ahead on the calendar, just so everybody's reminded, on December 19th, we are having a special meeting at 7:30 p.m. That's a Thursday. So with that, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.